The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. 300 representatives from across the known galaxy sat in their floating platforms, watching the center stage where Fleet Commander Zorvax stood tall and proud. Zorvax was a Dralith, and like all his kind, he was impressive to look at. His dark blue scales covered a body that stood 8 feet tall. His forearms were crossed over his chest, and his golden eyes showed nothing but confidence. "The Dralith Dominion has decided," he announced, his voice filling the chamber. "We will expand into the outer territories. The human colonies there will accept our rule or face the consequences." Whispers spread through the hall. Some representatives looked worried. Others seemed curious. A few simply shook their heads as if they knew something Zorvax did not. Councillor Telnus rose from his platform. He was a Valani, a species known for their wisdom and their long memories. His silver skin reflected the lights of the chamber, and his voice was calm when he spoke. "Fleet Commander, the Council cannot stop you. The outer territories are beyond our protected space. But I must give you an official warning." Zorvax laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound. "A warning? From the Council that has never fought a war?" "Not from us," Telnus said. "About them. About the humans." "What about the humans?" Zorvax asked. "They are a young species. They have been in space for only 300 years. Their weapons are weaker than ours. Their shields are thinner. Their ships are smaller. What could you possibly warn me about?" Telnus looked directly at Zorvax. His old eyes were serious. "Human ships are special. You will soon find out why." More laughter came from Zorvax. Several Dralith officers behind him joined in. "Special? Human ships are ugly boxes of metal. They look like they were built by children. Our vessels are works of art. Our technology is superior in every way." "Many have said the same," Telnus replied quietly. "They are no longer saying anything." Zorvax stopped laughing. "Is that a threat?" "It is history," Telnus said. 3 species have tried to take what belongs to humans. 3 species learned the truth about human ships. I am simply asking you to learn from their mistakes." "The Dralith do not make mistakes," Zorvax said. "We have conquered 47 worlds. We have never lost a war. These humans are nothing special. They come from a small planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. They are soft. They are weak. They come from Earth," Telnus corrected him. "A world where everything tries to kill everything else. A world of earthquakes, storms, floods, and fire. A world where the creatures eat each other to survive. The humans call it home. They call it beautiful." Zorvax waved his upper arms dismissively. "Impressive words. But words do not win wars. Ships and weapons win wars. And ours are better." The session ended. Zorvax walked out of the Great Hall with his officers following behind him. They were already discussing their battle plans, already counting their easy victory. But someone was waiting for them in the corridor. Ambassador Kethra was also a Valani, younger than Telnus, but just as serious. She stepped in front of Zorvax and held up her hand. "Fleet Commander, may I have a moment?" Zorvax stopped. He did not like the Valani, but they were useful. They kept records of everything. They knew things that others had forgotten. "Speak," he said. "I am not here as a council member," Kethra said. "I am here as someone who has seen the records. The real records. The ones that most species never see." "What records?" Kethra looked around to make sure they were alone. 40 years ago, the Kreth Empire sent a fleet to take a human Mayan colony. They had 60 warships. The humans had 12. "And the humans lost," Zorvax said. "Obviously. The humans lost 8 ships," Kethra said. "The Kreth lost all 60. Zorvax was quiet for a moment. "That is impossible. 20 years ago, the Mordith Collective attacked a human convoy. 50 Mordith raiders against 4 human cargo ships. Cargo ships, Fleet Commander. Not warships. What happened? The cargo ships won. They destroyed 32 raiders. The rest ran away. Kethra's voice was barely a whisper now. The humans lost only 1 ship. And that ship only died because it flew into a Mordith cruiser on purpose. The crew chose to die rather than let the enemy escape. Zorvax felt something cold in his chest, but he pushed it away. These are stories. Tales told by weak species to frighten children. I have seen the censored data, Kethra said. I have watched the recordings. Human ships do not die easily, and human crews never give up. Never. Every species gives up eventually, Zorvax said. When they see that they cannot win, they surrender. It is logical. Humans are not logical, Kethra replied. They are stubborn. They are crazy. They bond with their ships like they bond with their families. They would rather die than let their ship fall into enemy hands. Zorvax pushed past her. Enough. I have heard enough. The Dralith will show the galaxy that humans are nothing to fear. We have 200 warships. 200 of the finest vessels ever built. No human fleet can stand against us. Kethra watched him go. She did not try to stop him again. She had done what she could. She had given the warning. Now the Dralith would learn the lesson. Zorvax reached his flagship and took his place on the command platform. Around him, his officers were ready. The fleet was assembled. 200 warships, each one a masterpiece of Dralith engineering. Set course for the human border colonies, Zorvax commanded. Maximum speed. Yes, Fleet Commander, his navigation officer replied. As the stars stretched into lines around them, Zorvax thought about the warnings he had received. Special ships. Stubborn crews. Crazy humans who would rather die than surrender. He shook his head and smiled. What could possibly make human ships so special? He asked out loud. Their weapons are weaker. Their shields are thinner. Their technology is decades behind ours. His officers nodded in agreement. None of them had an answer. None of them would understand the answer until it was too late. Far behind them, Councillor Telnus stood at a window in the Great Hall, watching the Dralith fleet disappear into the darkness of space. We tried to warn them, he said softly to himself. We always try to warn them. He turned away and began preparing his report. Another species was about to learn why human ships were special. Another species was about to discover what happened when you pushed humans too far. The galaxy had seen it before. The galaxy would see it again, and the humans would do what they always did. They would survive. They would fight. They would win, because that was what humans did. That was what made them special. Not their ships. Not their weapons. Not their technology. Just them. Just the humans themselves. And the Dralith were about to find out. The USS Horizon was not a beautiful ship. She was a medium cruiser, built for long patrols along the border colonies. Her hull was covered in patches and repairs from years of service. Her paint was faded. Her engines made strange noises that the crew had learned to ignore. But she was home. Captain Daniel Harris stood on the bridge, looking at the main screen. His face was calm, but his mind was racing. The sensors showed what was coming. 200 Dralith warships, heading straight for the colony behind them. Captain, we have confirmed the count, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Murray said from her station. Her voice was steady, but Harris could see the tension in her shoulders. 200 warships, heavy cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. And what do we have? Harris asked, even though he already knew the answer. Us, the USS Pioneer, the USS Wanderer. 3 ships total. Harris nodded slowly. 3 ships against 200. The math was simple. The math said they should run. Begin civilian evacuation, Harris ordered. Get every transport moving. I want that colony empty in 6 hours. Yes, Captain. Murray paused. Sir, shouldn't we retreat with them? We can't fight a fleet this size. Harris turned to look at her. He was not a young man anymore. His hair was gray, and there were lines on his face from years of hard decisions. But his eyes were sharp and clear. Our job isn't to win, Lisa. Our job is to buy time. Every minute we hold them here is another minute for those transports to get away. We'll be destroyed. Maybe, probably. Harris almost smiled, but we'll make them work for it. Down in engineering, Chief Engineer Marcus Cole was already preparing. He was a big man with thick arms and grease-stained hands. He knew the horizon better than anyone. He knew every wire, every pipe, every system that kept her alive. Listen up, he told his team. When the shooting starts, things are going to break. Systems are going to fail. Our job is to keep this ship fighting no matter what. If main power goes down, we switch to backup. If backup goes down, we switch to emergency. If emergency goes down, we start using batteries and prayers. His team nodded. They had trained for this. They had always known this day might come. On the bridge, Ensign Tyler Brooks sat at the navigation console. He was young, barely 25, on his first deep space assignment. His hands were shaking slightly, but he kept them on his controls. Dralith fleet will arrive in 30 minutes, he reported. Thank you, Ensign. Harris looked at the young man. First battle? Yes, sir. Scared? Brooks hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just don't let it control you. Harris turned back to the main screen. Remember why we're here. Remember who we're protecting. Those transports are full of families. Children. People who are counting on us to give them a chance. Brooks straightened in his seat. I won't let you down, sir. The Dralith fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly on schedule. 200 ships arranged in perfect formation. They were beautiful in a cold, terrifying way. Their hulls were smooth and elegant, covered in weapons that could crack moons. Fleet Commander Zorvax looked at the 3 human ships blocking his path and laughed. This is their defense? 3 vessels? They. Transmitting Fleet Commander, his communications officer said. Let me hear it. Captain Harris's voice filled the Dralith bridge. It was calm and clear. Dralith Fleet, this is Captain Daniel Harris of the USS Horizon. You are approaching human-protected space. Turn back now, and no one needs to get hurt today. Zorvax leaned forward. Human Captain, you have 3 ships. I have 200. Surrender now, and I will let your crews live. There was a pause. Then Harris spoke again. You were warned. Zorvax frowned. What? At the council. They warned you about human ships. You didn't listen. Harris's voice was almost sad. You should have listened. Destroy them, Zorvax ordered. The Dralith fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles flew toward the 3 human ships. It should have been over in seconds. It should have been easy, it was not. The horizon shook as the first hits landed. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. But the ship kept moving. Her weapons fired back, not at the main fleet, but at the missiles coming toward her sister ships. Damage report, Harris called out. All breaches on decks 7 and 12. Shields at 40%. Weapons still online. Murray's fingers flew across her console. Sir, they're concentrating fire on us. Good. That means they're not shooting at the Pioneer and Wanderer. Keep us between the enemy and those ships. Down in engineering, chaos had arrived. A power conduit had exploded, filling the room with smoke. 3 of Cole's people were injured. The main reactor was screaming warnings. Cole didn't hesitate. He grabbed his tools and dove into the mess. Reroute power through secondary lines. Bypass the damaged conduit. Move, move! The ship shook again and again. Every impact felt like a giant punching them. But Cole kept working. His hands moved automatically, making repairs he had practiced 1,000 times. On the bridge, Brooks watched his screens in disbelief. The Horizon was taking terrible damage. By any normal standard, they should be dead. But she kept fighting. She kept moving. "Captain, weapons array is offline," Murray reported. "We can't shoot anymore." Harris was quiet for a moment. Then he made a decision. "Brooks, set course for the nearest Dralith cruiser. Full speed." Brooks turned to look at him. "Sir, you heard me. If we can't shoot them, we'll hit them. Ram that cruiser." "Yes, sir." Brooks's hands were steady now. The fear was still there, but something else was stronger. Pride, determination, the knowledge that he was part of something bigger than himself. The Horizon accelerated. Her engines burned hot as she charged toward the enemy fleet. She was on fire in 3 places. Half her systems were dead. But she was still moving. On the Dralith flagship, Zorvax watched in confusion. What are they doing? Why aren't they retreating? They're coming toward us. Fleet Commander. That's insane. They're already destroyed. But the Horizon wasn't destroyed. She was hurt. She was bleeding. But she wasn't dead. And she wasn't stopping. The human ship slammed into a Dralith cruiser at full speed. Both ships crumpled together in a flash of fire and metal. The explosion lit up the darkness of space. Did that kill them? Zorvax demanded. His officer checked the sensors. His face went pale. "Fleet Commander, the human ship is still there. They're still transmitting. They're launching escape. Pods and their remaining crew is still firing hand weapons from the hull breaches." Zorvax stared at the screen. The Horizon was broken in half. She was burning. She had just rammed a ship 3 times her size. And somehow, impossibly, she was still fighting. "What are these humans?" He whispered Dot behind the battle. The civilian transports reached safe distance. They jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared. The colony was saved. Captain Harris sat in his damaged chair, blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. His ship was dying around him, but he smiled. "Mission accomplished," he said softly. "We gave them enough time." Murray looked at him. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. Human fleet incoming. Admiral Vance with 40 ships." Harris laughed. It hurt, but he laughed anyway. "The cavalry's coming. All hands, prepare for rescue operations." He looked at his broken ship and his brave crew. "You did good, Horizon. You did real good." The reinforcements dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 40 human ships, fresh and ready for battle. Admiral Patricia Vance's voice broadcast across all channels. "Dralith Fleet, this is Admiral Vance of the Human Defense Force. You had your warning. Now you get your lesson." The real battle was about to begin. Fleet Commander Zorvax paced across his bridge, his golden eyes burning with confusion and anger. Nothing was making sense. Nothing was going according to plan. "Explain this to me," he growled at his tactical officers. "How is that human ship still functioning? We hit it with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. It rammed one of our cruisers. Half of it is missing. How is it still transmitting?" His officers looked at each other nervously. None of them had an answer. Captain Rin, commander of the warship Vengeance, spoke up through the communication screen. "Fleet Commander, I have been analyzing the human vessel's design. What I found is disturbing. Show me." Rin sent the data to the main screen. It showed a diagram of the Horizon, highlighting her internal systems. "Their ships have redundant systems," Rin explained. "This is normal. We have redundant systems too. But the humans, they have redundant systems for their redundant systems. and then backup systems for those, and then emergency systems for the backups. Zorvax stared at the screen. That's impossible. That would make their ships incredibly heavy and slow. It does. It does. Human ships are slower than ours. They are less elegant. They carry more weight. Rin paused. But they are almost impossible to kill. You have to destroy every single system one by one before the ship stops working. And even then, the crew keeps fighting. That doesn't explain everything, Zorvax said. Any crew would surrender when their ship is that damaged. Any logical species would stop fighting and save themselves. Humans are not logical, Fleet Commander. The voice came from a new channel. Zorvax turned to see Ambassador Kethra's face appear on another screen. She looked tired, but there was no fear in her eyes. Ambassador, why are you contacting me? Because I tried to warn you before, and you didn't listen. Maybe now you will. Kethra's silver face was serious. You want to know why human ships are special? I will tell you. But he won't like the answer. Zorvax waved his hand. Speak. Kethra took a deep breath. Let me tell you about Earth, the human home world. We call it a death world, and the name is accurate. On Earth, the ground shakes and opens up to swallow cities. The sky throws lightning and spawns storms that can level mountains. The water rises and floods entire regions. Fire sweeps across forests and burns everything in its path. Many worlds have natural dangers, Zorvax said impatiently. On Earth, everything is dangerous. The animals eat each other. The plants poison each other. The bacteria and viruses are constantly evolving to kill the host they live in. Humans evolved on a world that was trying to murder them every single day. Kethra leaned closer to the screen. And they won. They conquered that world. They became the dominant species, not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they refused to die. Zorvax was silent. When humans build ships, Kethra continued, they build them with the assumption that everything will fail. Because on Earth, everything always failed. Machines broke down. Systems collapsed. Plans fell apart. So humans learned to prepare for failure. They learned to expect the worst and keep going anyway. That explains the ship design, Captain Rin said slowly. But it doesn't explain the crew behavior. Why don't they surrender? Because of how humans think about their ships. Kethra pulled up old records on her screen. When we build a vessel, we see a tool, a machine, something to be used and discarded when it breaks. Humans don't see it that way. They name their ships. They talk to them. They form emotional bonds with hunks of metal and wire. That's absurd, Zorvax said. Is it? Look at the ship that just rammed your cruiser. The USS Horizon. That vessel is 30 years old. The humans have repaired her so many times that almost none of the original parts remain. But to her crew, she is still the same ship. She has a personality. A history. A soul. Zorvax shook his head. Ships don't have souls. To humans, they do. And because of that bond, human crews will never abandon their ships while there is any chance of saving them. They will fight until the last weapon is gone. Then they will fight with tools, with hands, with anything they can find. They would rather die with their ship than live knowing they abandoned her. The bridge was quiet. Even the officers who had been skeptical were now listening carefully. Let me show you something, Kethra said. A recording from 15 years ago. A human frigate called the Steady Heart was attacked by pirates. She lost all her weapons in the first 10 minutes. A logical crew would have surrendered. Instead, they fought for 11 more hours. The recording played on the main screen. Zorvax watched as the small human ship dodged and weaved through enemy fire. She had no weapons left, but she kept moving. When the pirates tried to board her, The crew fought them off with hand tools and improvised explosives. When the engine failed, the crew made repairs while being shot at dot for 11 hours. The steady heart refused to die. When rescue finally arrived, the pirates fled. The human ship was barely holding together. More than half the crew was injured. But they had survived. They had won. "This is what you're fighting," Kethra said. "Not just ships. Not just weapons. You're fighting a species that evolved to never give up. A species that treats surrender as something worse than death. A species that will burn their own ships rather than let the enemy take them." Zorvax's communications officer interrupted. "Fleet Commander, the human reinforcements are moving into attack formation. 40 ships. We still outnumber them 5-1, Zorvax said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. "Numbers don't matter against humans," Kethra replied. "I've seen the records. I've studied their history. They have won battles they should have lost 100 times over. Not because of superior technology, not because of better tactics, because they simply refuse to accept defeat." Admiral Vance's voice came through on the open channel. "Dralith Fleet, this is your final warning. Withdraw now, and we let you leave. Stay, and we will show you why the galaxy learned to respect human ships." Zorvax looked at the tactical display. 40 human ships against his remaining fleet. His ships were bigger, stronger, better armed. Every calculation said he should win, but the burning wreck of the horizon was still visible on his sensors. Somehow, impossibly, she was still transmitting life signs. Her crew was still alive in there, waiting for rescue. "What do we do, Fleet Commander?" Captain Rin asked. Zorvax made his decision. He had come too far to turn back now. He had too much pride to retreat from a species he had dismissed as weak. "All ships, attack formation. We end this now." The Dralith fleet began to move. The human fleet moved to meet them and on the broken remains of the horizon, Chief Engineer Marcus Cole finished rerouting the last power line. Against all odds, against all logic, he had managed to restore partial weapons. "Bridge, this is engineering. We have one gun back online." Captain Harris's voice came back, weak but determined. "One gun is enough. Get us back in this fight." The zombie ship known as the Horizon turned toward the enemy fleet. She was broken. She was burning. Half her crew was wounded, but she wasn't done yet. The real lesson was about to begin. The battle began with fire and light. Admiral Vance stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Defiance, watching her fleet move into position. 40 ships against nearly 200. The numbers looked bad. But Vance had been fighting for 30 years. She knew something the Dralith DIDN single quotes T dot numbers were just numbers. "All ships, execute pattern Delta 7, she ordered. "Focus on their flanks. Make them turn. Don't let them use their full firepower." The human fleet split into smaller groups. Each group had 5 ships that moved together like fingers on a hand. They didn't charge straight at the enemy. They came from angles, forcing the Dralith to spread their attention. Fleet Commander Zorvax watched in frustration. "Why won't they fight properly? They keep running away." "They're not running, Fleet Commander," Captain Rin reported. "They're circling, drawing our ships out of formation. Then hold formation. Don't chase them." But it was too late. The Dralith captains were eager for kills. When they saw human ships that looked damaged or slow, they broke formation to pursue. And that's when the trap closed. The USS Pioneer, one of the ships that had fought alongside the Horizon, was limping through space with smoke trailing from her engines. 3 Dralith destroyers moved in for the easy kill. "They're taking the bait," Lieutenant Commander Murray said from the Defiance. She had been transferred there after the Horizon was too damaged to command. "Spring the trap," Vance ordered. The Pioneer suddenly stopped limping. Her engines flared to full power, and she spun around to face her attackers. At the same moment, two other human ships appeared from behind a nearby asteroid field. The three Dralith destroyers were caught between three enemies. The fight lasted 2 minutes. All three destroyers were destroyed. Across the battlefield, similar traps were being sprung. Human ships pretended to be weak, drew in the Dralith, then turned and fought with everything they had. The elegant Dralith formation fell apart as captains chased what they thought were easy victories. "This is impossible," Zorvax growled. "Our ships are faster. Our weapons are stronger. How are they winning?" The answer came from a most unexpected source. The Horizon had rejoined the battle. Chief Engineer Cole had performed miracles in that broken ship. He had sealed hull breaches with emergency foam. He had rerouted power through circuits that should have been dead. He had brought one weapons array back online by connecting it to backup batteries from the escape pods. Captain Harris sat in a chair that wasn't even bolted to the floor anymore. His bridge was half destroyed. Most of his screens were broken, but he could still see. He could still give orders. "One gun," he said. "Let's make it count. Brooks, find me a target." Ensign Tyler Brooks had grown up a lot in the last few hours. The scared young officer was gone. In his place was someone harder, someone who had seen the worst and kept going. "I have one, Captain. Dralith cruiser, designation Delta 7. She's damaged from a previous engagement. Engines are slow. Take us in." The Horizon moved through the debris field like a ghost. She was so damaged that the Dralith sensors barely registered her as a threat. Just another piece of wreckage floating in space until she opened fire. The single working gun on the Horizon hit the Dralith cruiser's engine section. Once, twice, 3 times. The cruiser's engines exploded, leaving her dead in space. "Target disabled," Brooks reported, a fierce grin on his face. "Find another one," Harris said. "We're not done yet." On the Dralith flagship, Zorvax received report after report of losses. Ships that should have been winning were being destroyed. Ships that should have been safe were being ambushed. And worst of all, the human ships that he had already destroyed kept coming back. "Fleet Commander, the human ship we rammed earlier is firing on our vessels." "That's impossible. That ship is in pieces." "She's still shooting, sir." "One gun, but she's still shooting." Zorvax stared at his tactical display. The Horizon was marked as destroyed. All the data said she should be dead. But there she was, moving through his fleet, taking off damaged ships with her single working weapon. What does it take to kill these humans? He whispered. He was starting to understand. It wasn't about the ships. It wasn't about the weapons or the technology or the tactics. It was about the people inside those ships. People who refused to give up. People who kept fighting long after any reasonable species would have surrendered. Admiral Vance pressed her advantage. "All ships, push forward. They're breaking. Don't let them regroup." The human fleet surged ahead. They were taking damage too. Ships were hurt. Crews were dying. But they kept moving. They kept fighting. A human frigate named the Swift Justice took a direct hit to her main reactor. The ship began to lose power. Any normal crew would have abandoned ship. Instead, they vented the damaged section to space, killing the fire, and kept fighting with emergency power. A destroyer named the Iron Promise lost her captain when the bridge was hit. The first officer took command without hesitation. When she was killed too, a junior lieutenant stepped up. The ship never stopped shooting. The USS Wanderer, sister ship to the Horizon, was surrounded by 4 Dralith cruisers. Her captain, a woman named Grace Kim, looked at her options and made a decision. "All hands, brace for ramming speed." The Wanderer accelerated toward the biggest cruiser. But she didn't aim for the center of the ship. She aimed for the weapons array. The impact destroyed both her bow and the cruiser's main guns. Then she backed away, wounded but alive, and continued fighting with her remaining weapons. Zorvax watched the Wanderer survive what should have been a suicide run. He watched the swift justice fight on emergency power. He watched the Iron Promise change commanders twice without missing a beat. And he finally understood. "These humans," he said slowly. "They're insane." "Fleet Commander?" Captain Rin asked. "They don't fight like us. They don't think like us." Zorvax's voice was filled with something he had never felt before. Respect. Fear. "We fight to win. They fight to never lose. There's a difference." "Your orders, sir?" Zorvax looked at the numbers. He had started with 200 ships. He was down to 120. The humans had lost only 12 ships, and half of those were still functioning at some level. If he continued the battle, he might win. But the cost would be enormous. And for what? A few colonies that weren't even that valuable? "All ships," Zorvax said, the words tasting like ashes in his mouth. "Full retreat. Fall back to Drala space." "Sir?" Rin was shocked. "We're retreating?" "We're not retreating. We're learning." Zorvax turned away from the screen. "Today I learned why the Council warned me. Today I learned what makes human ships special." "What is it, sir?" Zorvax was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with new understanding. "It's not the ships. It's never been the ships. It's the humans inside them. They don't know how to surrender. They don't know how to give up. They will fight until their ships are dust and their bodies are broken. And even then, they will find a way to keep fighting." The Dralith fleet turned and ran. Behind them, the human ships did not pursue. They had won. That was enough. On the broken bridge of the horizon, Captain Harris watched the enemy disappear into the distance. His ship was barely alive. His crew was exhausted. But they had done it. "Sir," Brooks said quietly. "We won," Harris nodded slowly. "We did. We really did." He looked around at his damaged ship, at his brave crew, at the other human vessels gathering around them. They had been outgunned and outnumbered. They had faced an enemy with superior technology and overwhelming force. And they had won, because that's what humans did. They won. 6 months had passed since the battle at the border colonies. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was full again. 300 representatives from across the known galaxy had gathered to witness something that had never happened before. The Dralith Dominion was asking for peace. Fleet Commander Zorvax walked to the center stage. He looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his posture. His golden eyes held something deeper than pride. They held wisdom earned through pain. "I stand before this council as a changed being," he began. 6 months ago, I ignored the warnings you gave me. I dismissed the humans as a young and weak species. I led 200 warships against their colonies, certain of easy victory. He paused, letting the silence fill the chamber. I was wrong. Whispers spread through the hall. A Dralith admitting failure was rare. A Dralith fleet commander admitting it before the entire galaxy was unheard of. I lost 80 ships that day, Zorvax continued. 80 of our finest vessels, destroyed by a force less than a quarter our size. But the numbers do not tell the true story. The true story is what I witnessed with my own eyes. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the council chamber. Images of the battle. Images of burning ships that refused to die. I watched a human cruiser take damage that should have destroyed her 10 times over. She rammed one of my ships, broke in half, caught fire in 3 places, and lost most of her systems. Zorvax pointed at the image of the horizon. And then she came back. Her crew repaired her enough to fight again. With 1 gun. One gun against my entire fleet. The council members leaned forward, fascinated. I watched a human engineer seal himself inside a burning compartment because that was the only way to keep the reactor stable. He knew he would die. He did it anyway. His sacrifice kept his ship alive for 3 more hours. Zorvax's voice grew quieter. I watched a human pilot fly her damaged fighter directly into one of my missiles. She destroyed herself to save a civilian transport ship. A transport carrying people she had never met. She gave her life for strangers. He turned off the display. I asked myself then, and I ask myself now, what makes human ships so special? The council warned me. Ambassador Kethra warned me. But I did not understand until I saw it myself. And what did you see, Fleet Commander? Counselor Telnus asked. I saw that the ships are not special. Zorvax looked directly at the human delegation sitting in their platform across the hall. The humans are special. They build their ships the way they build their lives. They expect everything to fail. They expect the worst to happen. And they prepare for it. They build redundant systems because they know systems will break. They train their crews to never give up because they know giving up means death. He took a deep breath. But more than that, they love their ships. They name them. They care for them. They form bonds with metal and wire that we form only with family. When a human crew fights, they are not fighting for victory. They are fighting for their ship, their home, their family. The chamber was completely silent. We cannot defeat that, Zorvax said simply. No one can defeat that. You can destroy their ships, but they will build new ones. You can kill their crews, but more will come. You can win every battle, and they will still find a way to keep fighting. Because that is what humans do. That is who they are. He turned to face the human delegation fully. The Draleth Dominion requests peace with humanity. Not because we fear your weapons. Not because we fear your ships. We fear your spirit. We fear your stubborn refusal to accept defeat. We fear what you would do to us if we pushed you too far. Captain Daniel Harris rose from the human delegation. Captain Daniel Harris rose from the human delegation. He had recovered from his injuries, though he walked with a slight limp now. The horizon had been repaired too, mostly, though she would never be quite the same. Fleet Commander, Harris said, his voice calm and steady. You speak of human spirit. You speak of our refusal to give up. But I want you to understand something. We don't fight because we love war. We fight because we love peace. He stepped forward to the edge of his platform. Humans build ships to survive because we want to go home. We want to see our families again. We want to live our lives. Every system we add, every backup we install, every redundant circuit we wire, it's all so that our crews can survive and return to the people they love. Harris looked at Zorvax with no anger, no hatred. Just understanding. We don't want enemies. We don't want war. But when someone threatens our homes, our families, our way of life, we will fight. And we will not stop fighting until the threat is gone, or we are. There is no middle ground. Zorvax nodded slowly. I understand that now. And that is why we seek peace. Peace is acceptable, Harris replied. The human fleet has no desire to attack Draleth space. We only wanted to protect our people. That goal has been achieved. Counselor Talnus stood up from his position. His silver face was calm, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. The Council recognizes the peace agreement between the Draleth Dominion and the Human Federation. Let it be recorded that this day, 2 species chose understanding over conflict. Ambassador Kethra also rose. The Villani would like to make an additional motion. In recognition of their actions during this conflict, and their demonstrated commitment to peace and protection, we nominate the Human Federation for a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. Murmurs filled the chamber. A permanent seat was the highest honor the council could give. It meant that humanity would have a voice in galactic affairs forever. Is there any objection? Telnus asked. No one spoke. Not even the species who had once dismissed humans as primitive and young. Not after what they had witnessed. Not after what Zorvax had testified. Then the motion passes. Humanity is hereby granted a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. The human delegation erupted in quiet celebration. Admiral Vance, who had come to witness the proceedings, shook hands with Captain Harris. Lieutenant Commander Murray wiped tears from her eyes. Even Chief Engineer Cole, who rarely showed emotion, was smiling. Later, after the formal session ended, Zorvax approached Harris privately. "Captain, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Your ship, the Horizon." "She was destroyed, broken beyond repair. Yet I hear she flies again." Harris smiled. "She does. Took 3 months in the shipyard, but she's back. New hull, new systems, new everything. But she's still the Horizon. How can she be the same ship if every part is new?" Harris thought about the question. Because she's not just parts. She's memories. She's history. She's the crew who served on her and the battles she survived. As long as we remember her, as long as we keep her name alive, she's the same ship. Zorvax shook his head slowly. "I will never fully understand humans." "That's okay," Harris said. "Most of the time, we don't fully understand ourselves." They stood together for a moment, two former enemies who had found something like respect for each other. "Fleet Commander," Harris said, "I hope we never have to fight again." "As do I, Captain." "As do I." Outside the Great Hall, the stars shone bright and cold. Somewhere among them, the rebuilt USS Horizon was preparing for her next mission. Her crew was aboard. Her engines were running. Her systems were ready. She wasn't beautiful. She never had been. She was patched and scarred and worn. But she was home to her crew. She was family. And that was what made her special. That was what made all human ships special. Not the technology. Not the weapons. Not the redundant systems or the backup power or the emergency protocols. Just the humans inside them. The stubborn, crazy, wonderful humans who refused to give up. Who refused to surrender. Who would fight until the end of everything for the people they loved and the ships they called home. "Counselor." Telnus watched the human delegation leave the Great Hall. He turned to Ambassador Kethra and smiled. "We tried to warn them," he said. Kethra laughed softly. "We always try to warn them. They never listen. Perhaps next time they will. Perhaps." Kethra looked up at the stars. "But somehow, I think there will always be someone who looks at the humans and sees only a young species with weak ships and inferior technology. Someone who thinks they can win easily. And what happens then? Then they learn the lesson. The same lesson the Dralith learned. The same lesson everyone learns eventually." Telnus nodded. "Never underestimate humans." "Never underestimate humans," Kethra agreed. "Because human ships are special. And now the galaxy knows why." The stars kept shining. The human ships kept flying. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a species that had evolved on a death world continued to do what they had always done. They survived. They adapted. They refused to give up, and they won.